You're listening to This Week in Palestine, a program grounded in truth, resistance, and unwavering solidarity. Here, voices from the front lines of occupation meet global movements for justice, dignity, and liberation. Each week, we bring you uncompromising reporting, sharp analysis, and raw commentary that centers Palestinian experiences while connecting them to broader struggles against oppression. From policy and propaganda to daily survival and global activism, we examine the systems that shape life in Palestine and how those systems echo across borders. A quick note: the views expressed during this hour belong to our hosts and guests and do not necessarily reflect those of WZBC, Boston College, or its Board of Trustees. This isn't a space for sanitized soundbites or polite avoidance. It's a space for truth, bold, urgent, and unapologetic. Thank you for walking this path with us. Let's begin. Good morning, good evening, wherever you're tuning in from across the globe. I'm your host, Mohammed Al-Kul, and it's a deep honor to welcome you back to This Week in Palestine. It's Sunday, August 3rd, 2025. Once again, our focus returns to Gaza and the West Bank, lands under siege, where voices are too often drowned out by global indifference. While headlines fade and attention shifts, the reality remains: families are displaced, communities resist with unshakable resolve, and the struggle for dignity continues against staggering odds. And still, one haunting question echoes: how long must a people suffer before the world chooses conscience over convenience and action over apathy? Stay with us as we uncover truth, uplift resilience, and carry forward the flame of justice. This journey is not ours alone. It's shared, and it's sacred. You are listening to This Week in Palestine, Truth and Justice Radio. There's a pattern we've seen time and again. When you question Israel's motives, challenge its narrative, or speak up for Palestinian lives, you're immediately accused of antisemitism. It's a tactic designed to shut down dialogue, deflect accountability, and silence dissent. And it's especially rampant when discussing October 7th. Zionist voices and their supporters continue to weaponize that day, using it as a shield against criticism and a justification for genocide. First, they blame Hamas. Then, they blame Palestinian civilians. And if you dare to ask questions about the siege, the starvation, the mass killings, they point fingers and say, "You're anti-Semitic." They invoke the Holocaust, not to honor its victims, but to manipulate emotion and distract from the atrocities being committed in Gaza today. But here's the truth: telling the truth is not anti-Semitism. It's freedom of speech. It's moral responsibility. And more people are waking up to that reality every day. The narrative surrounding October 7th is beginning to unravel. New reports, testimonies, and investigations have revealed that many of the deaths that day were caused by Israeli forces themselves, not Hamas. Everyone remembers how, in the immediate aftermath, Israeli officials claimed thousands of citizens had been killed. A few weeks later, the number dropped to 1,600, then 1,200. Now, the trending figure is 850. Let's see what that number becomes by the end of the year. According to multiple sources, including Haaretz, BBC News, and the Times of Israel, Israeli commanders invoked the Hannibal Directive, a controversial military protocol that authorizes soldiers to use lethal force to prevent the abduction of Israeli personnel, even if it means killing their own. Though officially rescinded in 2016, this directive was reportedly reactivated during the chaos of October 7th. Attack drones were deployed on Israeli bases in civilian areas where hostages were present. Survivors and families have come forward asking not just what went wrong, but who pulled the trigger. The evidence suggests that Israeli forces killed their own citizens, not out of malice, but under a military doctrine that prioritizes control over life. And yet, the lie persists: Hamas is to blame. If they had released the hostages, none of this would have happened. This isn't just dishonest, it's cruel. It erases decades of occupation, siege, and apartheid that preceded October 7th. It ignores the fact that Israel imposed a total blockade on Gaza, cutting off food, water, medicine, and electricity long before any hostage negotiations began. It overlooks the reality that Israel has bombed refugee camps, hospitals, and aid convoys, killing thousands of civilians while claiming to target militants. And it assumes the world is too stupid, too distracted, or too afraid to call it out. But the world is watching. And the truth is emerging live streamed, documented, and archived in real time. We see the starvation. We see the mass graves. We see children dying from hunger while Netanyahu goes on television and claims there is no starvation in Gaza. He says this while 900,000 children go hungry, while over 100,000 women and children face famine-level malnutrition, and while aid seekers are shot dead by Israeli snipers. So again we ask, how do these liars sleep at night? How do they justify defending a regime that kills its own citizens, bombs its own people, and then blames the victims? We don't need to believe their stories anymore. We don't need to accept their lies. And we certainly don't need to be silenced by false accusations of antisemitism when we speak up for justice, because truth is not hate. Truth is not bigotry. Truth is resistance. And resistance is what we owe the people of Gaza, the people of Palestine, and every soul crushed under the weight of empire. Today, I've got two powerful clips for you to listen to, each offering sharp insight, bold truth, and a challenge to the dominant narratives surrounding Palestine. These aren't just sound bites, they're moments of clarity in a landscape clouded by propaganda. In this first clip, we'll hear Anna Kasparian and renowned historian Ilan Papp dismantle the false claims of a Zionist commentator Shabbos Kenbal on the Piers Morgan show. The moment is striking not just for its clarity, but for its courage. When the guest tries to deny the reality of starvation in Gaza, Kasparian and Papp respond with facts, moral conviction, and unflinching truth. They expose the lie for what it is: propaganda designed to mask genocide and hold the line against gaslighting in real time. This isn't just a debate, it's a public reckoning. Let's listen in.
Israel has one of the lowest combatant civilian ratios of modern warfare. Israel has actually given more aid into Gaza than pre-October 7th. This is a genocide that could be, alleged genocide that could be stopped at any point should the Hamas government decide to release the hostages and surrender. Israel has one of the lowest combatant to civilian ratios in modern warfare. They're operating in a dense
but I've also had lots of military people who don't agree with it.
Where's your decency, man? Where is your decency? Seriously, where is your decency? Do you not see the videos? Do you not see the starving children? 19 kids died of starvation over the last 48 hours. Where is your decency? I get that you're Jewish. I get that this is about your identity. I get that you want to defend your people. But sometimes you can't defend the indefensible. How many people need to die for you to be pleased with this slaughter campaign that's currently going on? How many? Tell me. When is it enough for you? And no one is buying the lie that the genocide would end if Hamas releases the hostages. I'm not going to believe for a second that Israel gives a damn about the hostages, because they've been bombing the Gaza Strip. They've been blocking humanitarian aid from entering the Gaza Strip. That not only impacts Palestinians who are being slaughtered by Israel, but it also obviously is going to impact the hostages. And no one is buying this dog and pony show. Okay? It's so obvious what Israel is doing here. They're even bombing Syria because they allegedly care about the Druze. It's not about the Druze. By the way, that Syrian civil war, Israel was part of that proxy war that you have Israel part of, the United States part of, Turkey a part of. All sorts of countries were involved in that proxy war. It was absolutely horrific. And now, of course, Israel is taking full advantage of the situation to annex more land from Syria again.
Someone like our friend in the team now, who is even proud in it. Can you believe that a Jew, a human being, an American can be proud of starvation, of mass murder, of genocide? I mean, this stage, really, here I remain speechless. I can understand if the Israeli propaganda tries to explain, to cover up, to spread lies, to talk about self-defense, to talk about killing Hamas, to talk about the fact that it's about Israel's security. But to be proud of what we are doing, to be proud of slaughtering 20,000 children, how can a human being get out those words out of his mouth? This is not human. I'm really sorry. Only the Nazis spoke like this. I repeat, only the Nazis were proud of mass killing and genocides.
Okay, well, Shabbos, you should respond to that.
Sure, I'm certainly not proud of mass starvation because there isn't any. I'm proud of the fact that
hang on. The IDF literally, for 3 months, starved the population in a blockade. There was no secret about that. Everybody saw it for what it was. So I'm afraid you're just not right about that. They only recently ended that blockade. So they are starving the population, which is, by the way, a war crime if you do that.
Piers, do you know how many meals the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation
spare me all this. It's just crap. It's like when I did a list, honestly. Shabos, I did a list, Shabos. I did a list. Hang on.
To starve a population, why would you give them 85 million meals in the last month and a half?
I know. They're all overfed. I know.
Is there more aid going into Gaza post-October 7th than pre-October 7th? I cannot name another war in modern warfare.
And you know the problem, Shabos?
The besieged population is actually receiving aid from the enemy combatants. That is what I'm proud of.
It's amazing. Look, Shabos, here's the thing. Unfortunately, you sound like the people who have started to defend the indefensible when it comes to what Israel's government is doing. And I'll tell you why. After all these attacks on Palestinians as they're queuing up for food, the IDF says basically the same thing. Either they were firing warning shots, or they felt they were being threatened by some people, or they've launched an inquiry or an investigation, and we never get the results of any of this. But in the meantime, 1,000 people who are desperately hungry and are queuing for food, even though you say they've got plenty of food, there are thousands stampeding for the small amounts of food that they can get their hands on, even though you say they're not hungry because you've overfed them, right? That all these people are just dropping dead. And it's got nothing to do with the fact the IDF are firing towards them, when everybody knows it does. And this is the problem when you defend the indefensible. It would have so much more credibility if the IDF just once said, you know what, we did. We shot at them, and like you said, you're very proud of everything they're doing. And if they were to proudly own this and explain why they need to shoot starving people who are stampeding for fragments of food, maybe we'd all take a lot more seriously the other claims they make.
As for starvation, I never once said that people are being overfed. I never once said that what the IDF is doing inherently all the time is good. What I am saying is the IDF has taken measures that no other Western country has ever taken in modern warfare. The fact that they drop leaflets on buildings telling civilians to evacuate because there are known Hamas entities in those buildings. The fact that they have provided more aid into Gaza post-October 7th than pre-October 7th is something I'm very proud of. And if you believe that the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation is not doing enough,
shoot at people as they're waiting in line for humanitarian aid. Dozens of people get shot and killed literally every single day as they're waiting for food. No, I'm not gonna let you filibuster, bitch. I'm not gonna let you filibuster. I'm not gonna let you filibuster. You guys are totally okay with IDF soldiers shooting and killing desperate people waiting for humanitarian aid. You're okay with that. I find it so unbelievably evil. Unbelievably evil. It shocks my conscience and my soul that people as evil as this exist in this world. Okay? Watching these images, looking at these videos, seeing all these kids desperate, hungry, parentless, trapped in Gaza. And you're sitting here and you're defending it. I can't stand it. I can't listen to it. The filibustering is unbearable. It's unbearable.
And what I tell you what,
I can't take it. How can you watch all those kids die?
Okay, let me bring Gideon back in here.
Will you call on Hamas right now to surrender and release the hostages? Do it. Do it right now. Say,
I called out Hamas. I called out Hamas from the very beginning. I've got no love for Hamas. It's a terrorist organization. What they did was wrong. I cried over the atrocities that they engaged in on October 7th. But you know what's so disgusting? You want to? Yes, I did. You should watch The Young Turks. That's where you'll see exactly what I had to say about Hamas after October 7th. I even trashed elements of the left who refused to criticize Hamas for what they did. Okay, so you don't have a leg to stand on when it comes to that issue.
Okay, you made that clear.
But you can't on one hand, talk about the injustice of what Hamas did, and then turn around and say it's okay if Israel does it times 1,000.
Okay, let me bring Gideon back in here. Gideon, My big issue, other than the slaughter of so many civilians now, which seems to be almost accelerating now on a daily basis, with no control valve at all. Now we have a full new wave of ground invasion. God knows how many more civilians are going to get killed with this. But my real problem is, what is the supposed goal here, right? I believe Smotrich when he says he wants to cleanse Gaza of Palestinians. Okay, but how does any of this make Israel safer? How does any of this help Jews around the world who want to get on with their lives and not have to feel threatened when they walk out of their front door? How does any of this do anything but what the critics of it, including allies and friends of Israel, say is just fomenting the hatred, fomenting the ideology that Israel just wants to kill all the Arabs it can, which I don't believe is what they want to do at all. But I do believe that out of what happened on October the 7th, there's been a collective meltdown of common sense from Israel's government. And they're now just on a never-ending rampage with no apparent goal, which makes any sense to anybody else.
Here we differ, Pierce. I used to think like you until the recent weeks. Now I'm so deeply convinced that there is a goal, a very clear goal. And the goal is the ethnic cleansing of Gaza. It is systematic. It is well planned. And listen to what I have to say. All the Holocaust in history started with moving populations and concentrating them in one concentration camp. Israel is doing it by the time we are talking now. Secondly, Israel is destroying the Gaza Strip systematically. It's not anymore a building here, a headquarters there, a school here, a shelter there. No, it's systematic destruction with huge companies who do it for a lot of money. Destruction of Gaza, which will make it unlivable. We want Gaza to become unlivable in order that the Palestinians will leave Gaza. Stop thinking that there is no goal. The goal is crystal clear now. I don't know if it will be achieved, but it is crystal clear, and it's not Smotrich. It's not only Smotrich. It's the army, it's the government, it's big parts of Israeli public opinion. To destroy Gaza, make it unlivable, to push them to the southern part of the Gaza Strip, to put them in concentration camps in which they will be longing to the days that they were starving in the Muasa and in other places, because life there will be much more of the hell. And then, according to the plan, and they said it, whoever will want to leave will be able to leave to other countries. So we are watching, by the time we are talking now, a horrible plan, a satanic plan of ethnic cleansing of Gaza. There is a goal, it's very clear, and the world has to do something immediately to stop it before it will be too late. The atrocities of the 7th of October were horrible. I was there the next day. I saw it in my own eyes. I will never forget it. Ever since then, Israel committed 1,000 7th of October. You understand it? 1,000 7th of October Israel committed. The children, if you take the numbers, the figures, the way that they are being killed, you see that we cannot claim again and again about the 7th of October and justify with the 7th of October all those horrible crimes against humanity which are taking place. There is a stage in which this is unacceptable anymore. You cannot again and again try to remind us about the terrible things that happened on the 7th of October and the 20 living hostages. You know that every 6 hours Israel is killing 20 people and they are as innocent as the hostages, among them many children. So stop with the 7th of October. It's unacceptable to rely only on this and to say the 7th of October enable us to go crazy and to do those crimes. And second point, stop speaking about Smotrich. The concentration camp in Rafiah is the idea of Israel Katz, Minister of Defense, nothing to do with Smotrich. Netanyahu let all this happen. It's not Smotrich. The idea of the humanitarian center or city, whatever, is clearly a stage on the way to transfer them. They say it, not I say. They say that they will be able to get out of this concentration camp only if they move to another country. This is ethnic cleansing, and it's not Smotrich. It is the Israeli government. The whole government behind it.
If you truly believe, as my co-panelists have suggested, that the Palestinian people are facing a genocide, if you truly believe that they're experiencing a discriminate bombardment, then you would do everything in your power to ensure that the innocent civilian population are safely evacuated temporarily so that Israel can kill the terrorists who have embedded themselves in civilian populations, like schools, like hospitals, like nursing homes. The problem is every time Israel or Western countries suggest doing that, suggest moving a refugee population the same way we have moved any refugee population, it's called ethnic cleansing. So then the alternative, okay, but then you would have civilians living in a dense urban environment where they are exposed to warfare. And then they die because that happens as a consequence of starting a war you have no hope of losing. So it's sort of a catch-22. Either we can safely evacuate them to Egypt, which, by the way, also shares a border with Gaza and has zero interest in taking in the Palestinian population, or we can say, well, if you're not willing to safely evacuate them into humanitarian corridors, then you are exposing them to danger in warfare. But it seems like my co-panelists are suggesting that is preferable. That, to me, is something I cannot understand. That is not rational. That is not liberal. That is not justified. We should safely evacuate civilians, take out Hamas and the dictatorial tyrannical regime, and then once the war is finished, you can safely repopulate Gaza with the same civilian population and build Gaza into what it was meant to be when Israel left Gaza in 2005, which, again, to your point of ethnic cleansing, Israel is doing a pretty shitty job of ethnic cleansing when A, there are more Gazans post-October 7th alive than there were pre-October 7th, and B, Israel has given up Gaza in 2005. They gave up the Sinai Peninsula in 1979. They have consistently given up land in the name of peace. You know how much land the other Arab nations have given up? Zero, because their starting position from 1948 was the eradication of the Jew from the river to the sea. And that's what the root of this conflict is all about, is the inability of the Palestinian leadership to recognize the fruitfulness of coexistence and peace. I believe in coexistence and peace. I believe the war should end. You know who doesn't?
Okay.
Are you going to let him
All right,
filibuster,
final word to Anna.
The same, okay, a final word to me. Thank you, I appreciate that. If this was really about getting the hostages back, then Israel wouldn't be raining terror on the Palestinians in the West Bank, which is a separate territory, which was not governed by Hamas, but they are raining terror on them. They're allowing these terrorist settlers to run Palestinians out of their homes. They're bulldozing homes. They're building additional illegal settlements. They're openly talking about annexing the West Bank, by the way. So all of these talking points are so easy to dismantle. Why should Egypt clean up your mess? Why doesn't Israel absorb the Palestinian people in Tel Aviv or some other part of Israel if they're so concerned about civilians getting killed? It's because they're not concerned about civilians getting killed. They do want to ethnically cleanse. They want to force Egypt, which, by the way, is having overpopulation issues of its own, to absorb a problem that was created by Israel and the United States. And no one is under this ridiculous impression that this would just be a temporary relocation of the Palestinian people. Why did Benjamin Netanyahu use the Greater Israel map in the very beginning of this genocide, publicly, during a press conference? He did it because this is all about the Greater Israel Project. He believes, first of all, he's totally against the Oslo Accords, has been from the very beginning. There are videos of him from when he's in his 20s talking about how the Palestinians should not be allowed to have their own state, their own right to self-determination. We're not stupid, Shabbos, okay? We're not idiots. We see it clearly. You can say whatever you want to say, and the same talking points are regurgitated over and over again. We're not buying it because we can see the facts on the ground.
You are listening to This Week in Palestine, Truth and Justice Radio. Now let's turn to ZEK News, featuring a tense exchange on the Piers Morgan show with Rabbi Shmuley discussing the genocide in Gaza. Pay close attention to how Rabbi Shmuley attempts to defend his views, relying on distortions and outright falsehood. It's deeply troubling to see someone invoke Jewish identity while justifying such inhumanity. His words dishonor the values of justice and compassion that Judaism holds dear. At the start of the segment, there's a brief mention of Zionist leader Daniela Weiss, who has openly justified the killing of Palestinian children. If you want to hear more, there's a full interview between Weiss and Piers Morgan available on YouTube, where she attempts to rationalize these horrific acts. This isn't just a debate, it's a window into the moral crisis at the heart of Zionist ideology. Let's listen closely.
In this video, we're watching Rabbi Shmuley completely lose his composure when he's challenged by both Cenk Uygur and Piers Morgan. Things get heated fast, and let's just say it doesn't exactly reflect well on him. As always, we'll watch the full clip together and break it all down for you at the end.
Yeah. Look, you just interviewed a terrorist, and she's one of the most vicious terrorists of my lifetime. These settlers are lunatic religious fundamentalists that believe in murdering Palestinians for God. It's an absurd interpretation of any religious document. The overwhelming majority of Jews, by the way, do not agree with them. They don't think that you have to murder Palestinians for God. And so when you asked her that last question, it was actually very interesting what her answer was. You said, do you mind 20,000 children being killed? And she said, as long as they're teaching their children to hate Jews, she seemed to be justifying that we have to kill their children. So think about the absurd logic of that. Since they teach them to hate us, we murdered their children. Gee, I wonder why they hate you. Like, the fact that she can't even see that shows you how painfully stupid this terrorist is. So I'm done. You guys are way too polite to Israel. Israel is a terrorist state. I'm not interested in it. I'm not interested in supporting it. I'm not interested in having them steal more Arab land. And I said to you, Piers, a long time ago, that this was never about self-defense. This was about taking Gaza. Well, I was right. I've been proven right by Netanyahu and their terrorist government. I called them terrorists, and I said that they would kill more civilians than Hamas. Are you kidding me? They've now, get a load of this fact. Hamas killed 815 civilians on October 7th. Terrible. We've all condemned it 1,000 times. Now, Israel has killed 870 Palestinians under the age of 1. They have killed more Palestinian babies than Hamas killed civilians on October 7th. And every time it's a justification. No, we talked to God. God told us to steal Arab land. God told us to murder Arab children. What kind of sick state is this? When I saw her and smiling, like you said, and smirking, now when I see a lot of these Israeli leaders, I feel like I'm looking at Germans telling us, no, it's okay. We can do this to the Jews. There's going to be no consequences. And they're among this partly, Piers, has to do with the fact that they think we own America. There's nothing you can do. We control the largest military in the history of the world. We can get them to do whatever we want because AIPAC has bought the entire U.S. government. And she's not wrong. She's not wrong. I mean, today Trump is talking about, you're not going to get the Epstein files. You're not going to get anything. We're occupied. We're all Palestinians now.
Rabbi Shmuley, I mean, when you listened to that interview with Daniela Weiss, what did you feel about it?
Piers, thank you for having me on. And having had a surprisingly civil debate at Oxford University with my brother Cenk, I'm actually going to excuse his hyperbole of calling Jews Nazis and stick to the facts because you were right, Piers. In your discussion with Daniela,
stop smearing Jews.
No, Cenk, please don't. Okay, you're already interrupting me. Just be civil, please. We had a civil debate at Oxford. Let's try to continue. We shook hands afterward. Hundreds of thousands of people said how much they enjoyed watching us shake hands. Let's be human a little bit. I'm going to do what you said, Piers, and stick to the facts. Number one, Cenk just said that Israel killed so many more civilians that were killed on October 7th. 45,000 Britons died in the Battle of Britain when the Luftwaffe and Hermann Goering, bombed London, Northampton to smithereens. But Churchill killed 700,000 German children. He killed 3 million German civilians. That was terrible. But here's my question to you, Piers. Outside of Parliament is a giant statue of Churchill as the greatest statesman in the history of Britain. Was Churchill a war criminal, yes or no?
No, Churchill wasn't a war criminal. In fact, Matthew, I saw you shaking your head.
Okay. He wasn't. Okay. You said facts. You said facts.
Well, hang on. If you're going to make statements like Churchill,
45. Wait.
Your numbers aren't correct
you can
about
expand.
the number of civilians who died. Never mind anything
else. Yes, they are. There were 3 million German civilians killed by Britain and by the United States. There were 70,000 Japanese killed on a single day in Hiroshima and then Nagasaki. Half of them were children. 35,000. Was Harry Truman a war criminal? Was Roosevelt a war? If you are prepared to say, Piers, based on facts and based on what Cenk just said, that the proportion of civilians to combatant deaths determines whether you're a war criminal. And by the way, Churchill killed 5 civilians for every 1 German combatant. The United States in Fallujah killed 4 civilians in Fallujah in Iraq for every 1 terrorist Iraqi combatant. So was George W. Bush a war criminal? Was Tony Blair a criminal? If you're prepared to at least be consistent and say that, yes,
well, yeah, I think Bush and Blair were war criminals.
3 million was Churchill. Okay, do you think that Winston Churchill was a war criminal? It's a yes or no question.
No.
The same way you put it to Danielle, yes or no?
Churchill, well, let me let...
So Churchill can kill 3 million
All right, you've asked a
Germans, but that's
question.
okay?
You've asked a question. Matthew.
What we just witnessed is a raw, unapologetic confrontation, one that rips the mask off the hypocrisy we've been fed for decades when it comes to U.S. foreign policy, Israel, and accountability. Cenk Uygur doesn't pull any punches. He says what so many are afraid to say out loud, that what's happening in Gaza isn't about defense anymore, it's about domination, land, power, and yes, bloodshed. And when you lay the numbers out, when you stop sugarcoating it, you realize just how grim the reality has become. 815 civilians were killed by Hamas on October 7th, a horrific tragedy, one that deserves global condemnation, and it got it. But now Israel, in its so-called response, has killed over 870 babies under the age of 1. Babies, not fighters, not militants, infants. And that's just the start. And what's worse is that it's being done with this chilling justification that somehow if Palestinians teach hate, then their children are fair targets. Let's sit with that for a second. That's not defense. That's collective punishment. That's vengeance disguised as policy. And when someone like Daniela Weiss smirks through these questions, as if the death of 20,000 children can be brushed off with a theological shrug, it's no wonder Cenk called it what it is, terrorism. Now cue Rabbi Shmuley. Instead of addressing the moral catastrophe directly, he falls back on deflection. World War II, Churchill, Hiroshima. It's the same tired game we've seen time and time again. Avoid the present by drowning in the past. He tries to compare civilian casualties in Gaza to civilian deaths in global wars 80 years ago, as if scale excuses intent and historical complexity somehow justifies modern atrocities. But here's the thing. No matter how many times you invoke Churchill or Truman, none of it changes what's happening right now. You cannot hide behind old wars to dodge accountability for new ones, and you especially cannot wave away thousands of dead children with a shrug and well, others did it too. What this exchange makes painfully clear is that we're at a turning point in how we talk about Israel, and how we hold our own government accountable for supporting it. The usual talking points aren't working anymore. People are seeing the videos, the bodies, the destruction, and they're asking the hard questions, even if those in power refuse to answer them. The reality is this: Israel's far-right government is operating with impunity, backed by billions of U.S. taxpayer dollars, and a political class too afraid, or too bought, to speak up. And the cost? Tens of thousands of lives, entire neighborhoods reduced to rubble, an entire generation of Palestinians growing up under siege, under bombs, under the weight of global indifference. Cenk calling Israel a terrorist state? That might shock some people. But what should really shock you is that no one in power seems willing to prove him wrong. We've reached the point where facts are no longer up for debate. This isn't about who you cheer for. It's about what you're willing to accept in your name, with your money, under your flag. So ask yourself, if this was happening anywhere else in the world, would we still be silent? Would we still be making excuses? Would we still be funding it? Because silence is complicity, and history has shown us where complicity leads. Let's get back to the video.
I think it's a completely coherent and fair question. It's about means and ends. Is the means justified to achieve a given end? For what it's worth, I think that consequentialist approach is legitimate. I think that Truman was justified in the atomic bombs. I say that reluctantly, but I think there would have been many more deaths had the Second World War not been brought to an end in that way. I know some people will disagree with that position. However,
okay, so you're one of the most fair
if I may just finish,
wait a second.
just
so
briefly
you're one of the
finish.
most fair person that I've ever spoken to about on this show. All I'm saying is, let's be clear. Pierce, God weeps for every Palestinian child, the 20,000 children. I don't know if it's 20,000, but even if it is, that's weeps for every one. One was too many. But every Arab child is the equal of a Jewish child. But whose responsibility is it? Who builds? I live in a community here in New York, New Jersey. There is no army base near me. Why are the Hamas headquarters in nurseries? Why does Hamas use these children to die so that you will then point the finger? Now, even Hitler did not do that. The German military headquarters were not built in kindergartens. And let me say one final thing, Pierce, if I may. Pierce, you know what struck me about your interview with Daniela Weiss? You did not once ask her, what do the people of Gaza want? I don't care what Pierce Morgan wants. I don't care what Daniela Weiss wants. I don't care what Cenk Uygur wants. I don't care what Robert Shmuley wants.
To lead.
The people of Gaza don't speak for them in the same way I won't. They have not had a vote since 2005 when Hamas took the leaders of the PLO, the Palestinian Authority, Mahmoud Abbas, and threw their opponents off the roofs and killed them. Then Hamas abolished all elections. Now, I want the people of Gaza to vote. Do you want to remain in that tiny hovel where you don't have a backyard, where any money that's given to Hamas, if it's rebuilt, will be, again, it'll go to tunnels? Remember that the Hamas got triple the Marshall aid per capita per Palestinian, and they didn't build one bomb shelter, they didn't build one school, they didn't build one university, they just built tunnels and rockets. Ask the people. So Pierce, let me ask you, why did you ask
may I say to the rabbi, forgive me for persisting here,
decide where they want to live.
But the rabbi did say, I think legitimately, that he had been interrupted and he didn't like it. I was halfway through the point that I was making, if I may say so, when you jumped in. I said that I thought Truman was justified in ending the Pacific War. I think Churchill was justified in trying to end the war in Europe. What I don't understand, and I think a lot of people who are instinctively pro-Israel do not understand, are where are the sunlit uplands on the other side of the evisceration of Gaza? I've been told by senior Israeli officials, confidentially, that young Gazans, Palestinians, and people across the Middle East are being radicalized, that these dead Hamas fighters are being replaced at a rate of 5 to 1. This isn't going to affect Israel for the next 5 months or 5 years, but for the next 50 years. And how on earth is flattening Gaza going to help the protection of Israel when their funders are in Tehran?
No, I agree.
The image, and let me just make one final point. In the medium term, I say to the rabbi, and I say this with great sincerity, the image of Israel, I don't want to superficialize it, but the brand of Israel, that liberal democracy in a tough neighborhood which sits unconsciously behind Western support and has done since the Second World War, has been obliterated, shattered into a million pieces. The next generation of American leaders are going to grow up where the most salient image in their minds is not going to be the Holocaust, as it is for our generation. It's going to be emaciated Gazan children dying in their thousands, being starved via a blockade. I say to you, I understand why Israelis and Jews rallied around Netanyahu after October the 7th. Who wouldn't? After an atrocity of that kind. But I believe you've been goaded into an overreaction that will reverberate through history of great strategic disadvantage to a country I want to do well.
I see you.
All right, and before I let Rabbi Shmuley respond, before you respond, Rabbi Shmuley, I just wanted to pick you up on the statistics that you regaled at the start of that, which I think you said that the British killed 3 million German civilians, including 300,000 children. Is that what you said?
A 5 to 1 combatant to civilian
just to be
ratio.
clear, you said 3 million, and of which 300,000 were children. That's what you said, right?
Right.
It's
the British decimated Cologne, they decimated Berlin, they decimated Hamburg, they decimated Dresden. In Dresden, they killed 30,000 in one night, etc.
Let me finish my point. You were completely wrong. You were wildly exaggerating the number of civilians killed by the British bombing campaigns, the Allied bombing campaigns. It's estimated between 350 and 500,000 German civilians were killed in total by Allied bombing in World War II. And I would also add this. At the end of what...
Okay, so I said 700,000.
Let me finish my point. Let me finish my point. So it was a sixth of what you said, in fact. But the wider point is we brought in the Geneva Convention at the end of World War II specifically to address the issues of mass civilian casualties in World War II. The UK signed up to that. Most countries of the world signed up to Geneva. Israel is a signatory to the Geneva Convention, and yet it breaches regularly the Geneva Convention, including, many believe, what they're now doing as a government in Gaza.
You saw it, unfiltered and undeniable. Rabbi Shmuley completely unraveled the moment he was pressed, really pressed, on what's happening in Gaza. And honestly, this wasn't just another heated debate. This was a revealing moment, A raw window into how defenders of Israel's actions struggle when forced to explain the unexplainable. Now, if you've been watching the channel for the past few weeks, you know we've been covering this unfolding tragedy in Gaza closely. And one pattern keeps repeating. Whenever someone from the Israeli side is confronted with actual facts, actual numbers, and real human suffering, they don't respond with empathy or accountability. They respond with spin, exaggeration, and outright deflection. And this interview, it was textbook. Cenk Uygur laid it all out, calmly at first, then with the kind of emotional force that comes when you're describing something truly horrifying. And let's be honest here, what we're seeing isn't just a conflict. It's not just collateral damage. When over 20,000 children are killed, and yes, that number is now part of the global conversation, this is something far worse. It meets the legal, moral, and human definition of genocide. But instead of grappling with that, Rabbi Shmuley resorted to one of the most dangerous tactics, historical whataboutism. He started bringing up Churchill, World War II, Hiroshima, comparing modern-day Gaza to the Allied bombings of Nazi Germany. It was absurd, it was desperate, and frankly, it was offensive. And that's where Piers Morgan, yes, Piers, who I rarely give credit to, stepped in and did exactly what needed to be done. He fact-checked the nonsense. Shmuley was throwing around inflated, inaccurate numbers, claiming the British killed 3 million German civilians, including 300,000 children. And Piers shut that down quickly, citing actual historical data showing the number was closer to 350,000 to 500,000 total. That moment right there tells you everything. When you're lying to make a moral case for war crimes, your case has already collapsed. And let's not ignore the broader point Piers made near the end, one that hit hard. The image, or brand, of Israel as a liberal democracy surrounded by hostile neighbors. It's been shattered. For decades, Israel relied on the sympathy and support of the West, especially the US, by framing itself as the lone moral force in a chaotic region. But now, the most powerful image for the next generation isn't going to be the Holocaust. It's going to be emaciated children, bombed hospitals, and mass graves in Gaza. And here's the thing, they did that to themselves. This didn't have to happen. The response to October 7th could have been proportional. It could have targeted Hamas leadership. But instead, it turned into something else, something far more dangerous and morally bankrupt. Entire residential blocks flattened. Food and water cut off. Aid convoys bombed. Civilians used as pawns. And every attempt to raise these issues publicly gets met with the same tired defense. Well, what about Hamas? What about tunnels? What about 1945? Let's be clear. None of those things justify the intentional, repeated, and large-scale killing of civilians, and the way Rabbi Shmuley tried to twist the blame onto the Palestinian people. That's not just wrong, it's disgusting. It's victim-blaming at the geopolitical level. Saying Hamas uses children as human shields doesn't justify killing the children. Saying Gaza is run by extremists doesn't excuse flattening an entire city and turning its people into statistics. This is why these interviews matter. This is why pushback is essential. Because, left unchecked, these talking points become normalized. And before you know it, we're rationalizing genocide while pretending it's diplomacy. So, massive credit to Cenk Uygur for staying laser-focused, and to Piers Morgan, yes, even him, for challenging the narrative when it needed to be challenged. It's a wild time when truth feels like rebellion, but here we are. Let me know your thoughts below, because I genuinely want to hear them. Are we finally seeing a shift in public opinion? Are more people starting to question what we've been told for decades? Because if this moment doesn't wake people up, I don't know what will. And as always, while you're down there in the comments, hit the thumbs up for the algorithm. It helps way more than you think. And if you haven't subscribed yet, what are you waiting for? This is the kind of content we break down here, raw, real, and unfiltered. I appreciate all of you. Stay informed, stay bold, and I'll see you in the next one.
Before we close today's episode, I want to share one final clip, one that Zionist voices would rather you never hear. On the Tucker Carlson show, retired Green Beret Lieutenant Colonel Tony Aguilar gave a chilling account of what he witnessed while working in Gaza earlier this year. With 25 years of combat experience and a decorated military career, Aguilar is not a man easily shaken. But what he saw in Gaza left him horrified and compelled him to speak out. In this interview, Aguilar describes the landscape as post-apocalyptic, with entire neighborhoods reduced to rubble and civilians suffering from mass starvation. He exposes how aid distribution under the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, GHF, was not only inadequate, but dangerously entangled with Israeli military operations. According to Aguilar, 3 out of 4 aid sites were collocated with active combat zones, an act he calls a clear violation of international law. But one story stands out, a story that no amount of spin can erase. Aguilar recounts the death of Amir, a boy not even 10 years old who walked 12 kilometers in search of food. After surviving the journey, Amir was shot in the head. No warning, no mercy. Just another child erased by a system that treats Palestinian life as disposable. This is not hearsay. This is not propaganda. This is a first-hand account from a U.S. military veteran who risked his life to help civilians and chose truth over silence. Let's listen to Tony Aguilar's testimony. Let's hear what the world is being told to ignore. You can find the full interview on Podmerized or read the full transcript on Singju Post.
In a powerful and deeply emotional moment during a recent interview on the Tucker Carlson show, retired Green Beret Lieutenant Colonel Tony Aguilar shared a revelation so raw and heart-wrenching. It left Tucker Carlson visibly stunned and speechless.
Let me ask you about the story that you have told that's a really difficult story, awful story, but about the boy who you were in contact with who was killed, shot to death. What happened?
So, this little boy is similar in age to my son. Brown eyes. My son has brown eyes. I see my son's face when I look at him. And this little boy, he's not ISIS. He's not a combatant. This was on secure distribution site number 2, the 28th of May, our second day of doing distribution. I'm on that location. I didn't get this secondhand. I didn't see it from afar and then assume I saw it. I touched it. I felt it. Other people saw it. This young little boy, his name is Amir. I know that because when he walked over from the crowd of people, he walked toward me. There was 2 of us standing there, 2 UG Solutions guards standing in that area. And he was walking towards us, and we thought maybe he was hurt or maybe he was asking for some more food because all he had in his arms was a small bag of rice, half a bag of flour, some lentils that he had picked up from the ground. He didn't have much. And we thought maybe he was asking for more food or maybe he was hurt. And we notioned him over, and he came up and he extends his right hand at us. And so I kind of walked up to him and waved him over. And the guy standing next to me, this young boy, holds his hand and he kisses it. And then he comes to me and he holds my hand and he kisses it. In Arab culture, that is a very significant sign of respect. That's not something that should be taken lightly or something that should be, that's a big sign of respect. And we were taken aback by that. The gentleman that was standing next to me was also a military veteran, combat veteran. So he's been to Afghanistan and Iraq, and he was moved by it. He was touched. I was touched. And as he was standing there, we were both looking at him, and he was very emaciated. He had no shoes on. His pants were tattered. He had a kind of a rope or string holding his pants up. Filthy. Probably hasn't bathed in months. Probably hasn't eaten in days. And oh, by the way, when they walk 8 to 12 kilometers to get to these sites, the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation mechanism provides no water. 0. Not a single bottle. Because it's too expensive. Distributing water weighs so much that it breaks down the profit per cost per truck. That's a fact. Because I asked why, and I was given a lesson in it. This is why. It's too expensive. So we give them no water. All of their food, by the way, requires water to cook it. Rice, lentils, beans, flour. You gotta have water. So what we're giving them, I don't know how they're eating it, but he's standing there, and I put my arm on his left shoulder, and I look at him, and I can feel the bones in his shoulder. I can feel the weakness in his arm. I can feel the vulnerability. I can feel the desperation. And I look at him, and I got down on my knees, or I'm looking at him in the eyes, and then I say to him, I said, people care. America cares. You're not going to be forgotten. People in the world care. And he doesn't speak English, and I don't speak Arabic. But the connection we had in looking at each other, he felt for the first time in a long time that there was someone that cared. And I got down on a knee, and he came to his level, and the items he had in his hand, he sets them down on the ground, and he raises his hands, and they're small, fragile. You can see bones sticking, just the bones through the skin. And he places his hands on my face, and he kissed me. And he looked at me in the eyes, and he says, thank you. He said it in English. Thank you. Like, people are starving in Gaza. People are dying in Gaza.
These children that are starving and dying, these children, they look like everyday Americans. This child is picking up noodles off the ground with his bare hands because there was no food left. So he's picking up noodles to put into his backpack. Amir goes back to the main group and he goes out the exit. We had a very strict protocol that they come in a certain way, get the aid, and then they go out a certain way. From the way they came in, it takes them back to the way they came in. The exit takes them back that same way. So they enter from the Morag corridor, they go south, they go through the station, they exit, and they go north to the Morag corridor. So coming in and going out, they're tied right back into the active combat zone. Site number 2 particularly is a little bit different than the other sites because it's in between site 1 and 2, and there's an IDF combat outpost just off the corner of SDS2. So there's a berm that lines that road going out. So if people are leaving the exit and someone is on the east side of the berm shooting into the crowd over here, you can't see what's on the other side of that berm because of the obscuration, the field of fire. So the IDF are shooting at the crowd that's leaving. As the crowd left and they would hit the Morag corridor to go west, the IDF would shoot at them, shoot at their feet, shoot over their head. We would shoot at them, shoot at their feet, shoot over their head, shoot into the air, and the bullets start hitting off the ground. There's video of this. It's on the BBC video. Hitting off the ground, see dirt flying up, and I was still on the site. I was below the berm. It was the second time we had done distribution. So when I heard the gunfire kick off, the automatic machine gun fire, I thought we were under attack. I thought something had happened. So I ran up to the southern berm and I laid down to take cover. I'm observing and I'm looking, and I see the shooting keep going on, like just the rap, and Palestinians dropping on the side of the road. So Amir didn't make it home. He walked 12 kilometers to get some food, picked up scraps off the ground, because that's all that was left, because the 8-minute mayhem took all of the food. And by the time he got there, walking with no shoes, hungry and tired, the only thing left for him was to pick up some remnants off the ground. And when he left, he was killed by the IDF. Why? Because they lack discipline, they lack standards, and they lack basic human decency. The only way I could describe the sites is death traps. And they didn't become death traps, they were designed as death traps. And the United States puts aid and we lure them in, and when they leave, they get shot at coming and they get shot at going. So the reports you hear from Nasser Hospital, which is about 5 kilometers from site number 2, Nasser Hospital, that you hear all the reports of dead civilians coming in to get treated, the doctors have said this is grotesque. Doctors have testified that every time GHF does a distribution at site 1, 2, or 3, which the road from those goes directly to the Nasser Hospital, they get a massive influx of patients to what they call mass casualties, an MCI, mass casualty incident, every time.
Have you ever heard of any other country do it? I've never heard of anything like this, but I haven't spent 25 years deployed in war zones. I've never seen it. You've never seen this anywhere? Anywhere
to this scale. Now, in other countries that I've been in with partnered forces, are there sometimes, an errant or undisciplined, bad apple in the group that you discipline and you correct that behavior? Sure, I've seen that. At this scale, to where it's widely accepted, but then to also the fact that the UG Solutions contractors also do it under the guise of, well, the IDF do it, so we're fine with doing it. Never have I seen an American behave this way. Never have I seen an army. And I've seen some pretty ragtag armies in my day, and never have I seen this level of depravity and just disrespect for human dignity. And the word I keep using, because it's the only way I can describe it, is because America is giving tax dollars to it. It's un-American.
You are listening to This Week in Palestine, Truth and Justice Radio. I want to take a moment to highlight 2 urgent calls to action, both rooted in solidarity, resistance, and the refusal to stay silent in the face of genocide. Every Tuesday from 12 to 1 p.m., community members gather for the standout to stop the killing outside the Zionist consulate at 20 Park Plaza in Boston. This is more than a protest, it's a moral stand. a public witness against the ongoing genocide in Gaza. A collective act of conscience that says silence is complicity, and we will not look away. This weekly gathering is a space where voices rise for the voiceless, where presence becomes resistance, and where humanity is reclaimed in the face of systemic violence. If you're in the Boston area, consider showing up. Your body, your voice, your care, they matter. The second call to action is happening on Thursday, August 7th, from 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. at the Salem Farmers Market, located at 21 Front Street in Salem. Join the North Shore for Palestine group in demanding an end to the starvation in Gaza and standing for Palestinian liberation. If you're in the North Shore, come out and lend your support. This is a chance to connect, organize, and show that our communities will not be silent. Together, we stand for justice. Together, we make it impossible to ignore. That's a wrap for today's episode of This Week in Palestine. Stay informed, stay engaged, and never stop asking the hard questions that push us closer to justice. Until next time, I'm your host, Mohammed Al-Ghul, and it's been an honor to have you with us. If you have questions, reflections, or would like to support our work, feel free to reach out at TWIP-podcasts@gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you. A heartfelt thank you to you, our listeners, and to the incredible team working behind the scenes to bring this show to life. Deep gratitude to Bob Funk, Stanley Robinson, Stephen Lowe, Sophia Rose Woolman, Tahani Abu Mosa, Dr. Rana Awad, Dr. Bethany Marks, Juliet Salome Olivier, and Renaud Al-Ghul. Your dedication and passion make this possible. This Week in Palestine is a production of Truth and Justice Radio, proudly broadcasting from WZBC Student Radio at Boston College. Thank you for spending your time with us as we continue the journey toward Palestinian liberation. We'll see you next week.
He was just a boy, not even 10. Dust on his feet, no paper, no pen. 12 miles he walked through silence and stone, looking for bread, looking alone. The sky didn't cry, the world didn't speak. The sun burned his back, his legs grew weak. But hope is a fire that children still keep, even when justice is buried deep. Amir, your name is a song we will sing, a prayer in the wind, a bell that still rings. You carried your hunger like a flag in the air, and they shot you down, but we still care. Amir, you walked where angels won't tread for a piece of bread, and they gave you lead, but your story lives, and your spirit won't fade. You are the child the truth has made. No cameras roll, no headlines scream, just a mother's cry in a broken dream. But we saw your path and we heard your plea. In every mile you walk for me. They say you were nothing, just one of the rest, but you were a hero in a child's vest. And now every footstep we take in this fight is lit by your courage, your flickering light. Amir, your name is a song we will sing, a prayer in the wind, a bell that still rings. You carried like a flag in the air, and they shot you down, but we still care. Amir, you walked where angels won't tread, for a piece of bread, and they gave you lead, but your story lives, and your spirit won't fade. You are the child the truth has made. 12 miles of silence, 12 miles of grace. Amir, we see you, we won't look away.